Well, I think as any mother would be, she was absolutely over the moon. And actually we had quite an awkward situation because I knew, and I knew that William had asked my father, but I didn't know if my mother knew. So I came back from Scotland and my mother made it sort of...
Queen Camilla has finally crossed a line, and this time there's no hiding it. Behind palace walls, royal insiders say she was caught wearing priceless jewelry quietly meant for Princess Catherine and young Charlotte. What was once a private suspicion turned into a full-blown confrontation, with Kate holding the proof in her hands. No press, no leaks, just a private showdown that left Queen Camilla in tears. Was this a misunderstanding or a calculated betrayal? One thing is certain. The jewelry wasn't just missing. It was stolen history. And now, the future of the monarchy may never look the same. The sudden vanish. It began like a whisper in the back of Kate's mind. Something small, something off. She noticed that a sapphire brooch she hadn't worn recently was no longer in its usual place. At first, she thought it might have been loaned or archived. But when a second piece, diamond earrings once worn by Diana, also disappeared from her private collection, the feeling turned into worry. These weren't just decorative pieces, they were emotional heirlooms. They carry her spirit, Kate once said, referring to Diana. Each item held meaning, a memory of the past and a promise for the future. These pieces were always intended for Princess Charlotte, not just as jewelry, but as symbols of the powerful women who came before her. What made everything worse was when Kate saw a photo online of Queen Camilla wearing what looked like the same brooch. It wasn't announced. There was no official handover. Nothing had been signed or noted in the records. These pieces were never transferred. Yet somehow, they were showing up in public again, just on the wrong person. Kate didn't panic. Instead, she quietly started asking questions. She reached out to staff, double-checked the records, and spoke with those who managed the royal inventory. "She's not the kind to accuse," said one insider, "but she knows when something's being hidden." What she found next would take this from a small mistake to a much bigger betrayal. And it all ties back to Charlotte. Because these jewels weren't just pretty, they were part of a royal inheritance carefully planned to honor the women who shaped the monarchy. Charlotte's royal inheritance, Princess Charlotte, was born with more than just a royal title. She was born into legacy. As the daughter of Prince William and Princess Catherine, and the granddaughter of Princess Diana and Queen Elizabeth II, her life is shaped by deep family history. And with that history comes responsibility and inheritance. Not just money or land, but symbols. Symbols in the form of royal heirlooms. From the moment she was born, certain items were chosen specifically for Charlotte's future. Diana's sapphire ring, which William gave to Kate, was just the beginning. A delicate diamond bracelet worn by Queen Elizabeth. A brooch once passed through Queen Mary's hands. Even the famous Spencer tiara had been set aside, not just for public display, but for the day Charlotte would come of age. Kate took that responsibility seriously. She wanted Charlotte to grow up not just knowing who her great-grandmother and grandmother were, but feeling connected to them. "She'll wear them when she's ready," Kate reportedly told a friend, "not just because they're beautiful, but because they tell her story." Each piece had a plan. Each piece had a purpose. And now, some of them were disappearing. This wasn't about greed or vanity. It was about what those pieces represented. And for Kate, protecting Charlotte's inheritance meant protecting her identity as a future royal woman. These jewels were reminders that Charlotte's place in the family line wasn't temporary or symbolic. It was permanent, powerful, and tied to everything Diana once stood for. But someone else had their eye on those pieces too. And instead of honoring tradition, they were quietly making changes that would shift power behind the scenes. The Spencer tiara and Queen Mary's not few pieces in the royal vault carry as much weight as the Spencer tiara. It was worn by Diana on her wedding day in 1981, a moment watched by millions around the world. That tiara had long been earmarked for Charlotte. It was personal, powerful, and meant to connect her directly to her grandmother. But in early 2025, royal watchers noticed something strange. Photos surfaced of Camilla's granddaughter, Lola, wearing what looked shockingly like a historic royal pin, one previously logged as reserved for Charlotte's future use. Another event showed Camilla herself wearing Queen Mary's lover's knot tiara, long associated with Diana and designated for Charlotte by family tradition. "That wasn't just styling," said one commentator. "That was a statement." Insiders began to talk. Quietly, of course, but consistently. Something had shifted. Items once protected were now circulating, showing up in places they never should have. "This isn't just about jewelry," said a palace aide. "It's about drawing new lines." And those lines didn't include Charlotte. Instead, they were being redrawn around Camilla's side of the family, people with no direct royal blood and no right to wear Diana's symbols. Kate took notice. And this time, she wasn't just watching. She started looking deeper into who was authorizing the use of these pieces. Why were they showing up in new places? Why had Charlotte's future been pushed aside? "When things go missing, you don't just look at the jewelry," Kate reportedly said. "You look at who's trying to rewrite the story." And the one rewriting the story was doing it from the shadows. But Kate was about to pull the curtain back, and what she found would shake the palace to its core. Camilla's hidden plan. While Catherine searched for answers, something far more calculated was already happening behind palace walls. Quietly and without public record, Queen Camilla had begun altering official documentation inside the royal vaults. Items once marked for Charlotte's future were slowly being relabeled, moved into a new category called "available for current use." It sounded harmless, but in royal language, it was dangerous. That change meant the pieces were no longer tied to a specific heir or to Charlotte. It gave Camilla freedom to wear or distribute them as she saw fit. Some staff were confused, others deeply uncomfortable. "We were told not to question it," one archivist reportedly admitted. "There was pressure to keep quiet, to look the other way." And many did. Some of the more seasoned palace employees had seen moves like this before. It wasn't about one necklace or one tiara. It was about shifting legacy. Camilla's decisions weren't made in public. There were no announcements, no grand claims. But slowly, the family line of inheritance was being rearranged, and the pieces that were supposed to bind Charlotte to Diana's past were slipping into someone else's future. Kate wasn't told. William wasn't asked. And that's what made it all so alarming. "This wasn't just protocol being mismanaged," said a source close to the Princess of Wales. "This was legacy being stolen." Quietly, behind closed doors, Camilla was building her own version of royal history, one that didn't include Charlotte, and that made it personal. But if Camilla was building a quiet plan, Kate was about to launch a quiet mission of her own, one that would turn whispers into truth and truth into action. Kate's discovery. Kate didn't need to make a scene. She never does. But she wasn't going to stand by and let her daughter's future be erased. So she got to work, carefully, quietly, and with intention. She reached out to the royal archivists she trusted most. Some had worked with Diana. Others had spent decades inside the palace vaults. And all of them understood the weight of what was missing. Together, they started tracing every piece. One by one, they went through documents, inventory logs, historical assignments, and that's when the red flags became undeniable. Some of Diana's most important jewels had been moved from reserved for Charlotte to unassigned, or worse, currently in circulation. There was no official approval from William, no notification to Kate, just silence. The betrayal hit hard. These weren't just accessories. They were physical links between generations. Kate had always seen them as tools for teaching Charlotte about the women who came before her. "These are the pieces she'll hold on to when I'm gone," Kate once told a friend. To see them quietly shifted away, without consent, felt like more than disrespect. It felt like an attempt to erase Charlotte's place in the royal line. But Kate didn't go to the press. She didn't cause drama. Instead, she documented everything. She wanted the facts clear before confronting anyone. One staff member shared, "It wasn't about revenge, it was about protecting her child's future." And that quiet strength? It was beginning to shake the very structure Camilla thought she controlled. Because while Kate moved with grace, Camilla moved with calculation. But every move has a cost, and Camilla's long game was about to catch up with her. A queen's ambition. Camilla had always played the long game. From the moment she stepped into the royal spotlight, she knew she wasn't loved by the public. The shadow of Diana was long and unforgiving. But Camilla didn't retreat. She endured. Slowly, she reshaped her image. Speech by speech, event by event, she carved out her place in the monarchy. And by 2023, she was crowned Queen Consort. But old insecurities don't disappear with new titles. Behind the smiles and speeches, Camilla reportedly feared the emotional grip Kate and Charlotte had on the public. Diana's memory still lingered in every tiara, every brooch. And no matter how hard she worked, Camilla couldn't erase the past. But she could redirect the future. And that's exactly what she tried to do, quietly. By controlling the heirlooms, she wasn't just choosing accessories. She was choosing who would carry the legacy forward. She placed her own family, her children, her granddaughter, closer to the symbols of royal tradition. To outsiders, it looked like unity. But to those inside the palace, it was a power move. She wasn't claiming the crown, said one source. She was claiming the story. What Camilla didn't expect, though, was how deeply Kate understood the real game. The jewels weren't just for display, they were history. And if someone tried to rewrite that history, Kate wasn't going to sit quietly. Because, for her, protecting Charlotte wasn't about style or status. It was about truth, lineage, and honoring the legacy of the woman who never got to see her granddaughter grow up. And just as Camilla's plans neared their peak, something happened that changed everything. William found out. And that's when the quiet war turned explosive. The breaking point. It didn't take long before Prince William was pulled into the situation. A senior jewelry curator, who had always been close to Diana's collection, flagged a troubling discovery. Queen Camilla had recently worn a sapphire and diamond brooch, once classified under Catherine's care, an item historically tied to Diana. The curator, unsure of how it left Kate's collection, raised the matter privately, but word spread fast. When William was shown a side-by-side photo comparison, one from Diana's early years and another from Camilla's recent appearance, he was stunned. There had been no official approval for the transfer, no discussion, nothing. "Why is my stepmother wearing my wife's things?" he reportedly asked in frustration. And this wasn't just a simple mix-up. It was a breach of trust. To William, the matter was personal. These were Diana's memories. These were promises he made to protect his mother's story, and now to pass that story on to Charlotte. He didn't see it as jewelry. He saw it as a symbol of respect, and that respect had been crossed. "It's not about fashion," William told a close aide. "It's about legacy, my mother's, my wife's, and my daughter's." He confronted Camilla behind closed doors. What was meant to be a calm clarification quickly turned into something heavier. Charles found himself caught in the middle, torn between defending his wife and understanding his son's pain. The family was no longer aligned, and with Kate already quietly gathering proof, it became clear this wasn't going away quietly. And as the tension grew, Kate decided it was time to do what Camilla never expected. She was going to confront her directly, with evidence, poise, and quiet power. Kate versus Camilla. Behind palace walls. The meeting was held privately at Kensington Palace. No press, no public announcement, just two women and the truth. Kate entered with a calm presence, but her message was firm. In her hands were folders, neatly organized files of emails, inventory logs, jewelry records, and photographic proof. She came prepared, one staffer said. There was no room left for denial. Camilla, reportedly unaware that Kate had gathered so much documentation, was caught off guard. She had expected emotion, maybe even anger. What she got instead was control. Kate didn't shout. She didn't accuse. She laid out the facts piece by piece, each page revealing how items linked to Charlotte had been reclassified, redirected, and worn without permission. "This is not a misunderstanding," Kate reportedly told Camilla. "This is rewriting history." The words cut through the silence. Kate's tone was respectful, but her message was sharp. She wasn't just standing up for herself. She was standing up for Charlotte, for Diana, and for every woman in the family whose voice had been drowned out by protocol. The room fell quiet. Camilla, visibly shaken, didn't argue. She tried to explain, but there were no explanations that could undo what had been done. For the first time, the Queen Consort was cornered, not by public backlash, but by truth. And the truth wasn't loud. It was calm, clear, and undeniable. But what came next wasn't a fight. It was something more surprising, something that revealed just how deeply this moment had affected Camilla. "I just wanted to belong." After the confrontation, Camilla returned to Clarence's house quietly. She canceled 2 scheduled events and reportedly remained out of public view for over a week. According to palace insiders, she was shaken, visibly distressed, even with close staff. One aide claimed she broke down in private. It wasn't anger, it was sadness. She said, "I just wanted to feel part of the legacy." Camilla had spent decades rebuilding her public image. She had endured years of criticism after Diana's death. She had fought for her place beside Charles, and she had, by some measures, finally arrived. But in one meeting, she was reminded that titles don't erase history, and they certainly don't replace legacy. That weight was heavy, and this time, it broke her. The palace tried to keep things quiet. Charles reportedly comforted her, reminding her of her role and the work she had done. But inside the royal household, the energy shifted. A quiet respect began forming around Kate, not just from staff, but from family members who had once stayed neutral. "She handled it like a queen," said one senior advisor, "without shouting, without drama, just truth." Camilla didn't try to fight back. She didn't challenge Kate publicly. Instead, she pulled back. Fewer appearances, shorter engagements, and when she did re-emerge, her presence was different, softer, more cautious. The strength she once used to rise through the ranks now seemed shaken. And though she still wore the crown, it was clear she was no longer the strongest woman in the room. And while Camilla sat with the weight of her choices, the outside world was just beginning to find out. And when they did, it exploded. Public backlash. At first, the public didn't know the full story. Just whispers, a few photos, a missing brooch here, a misassigned tiara there. But when word began to leak, first through insiders, then headlines, it caught fire. One outlet hinted at heirlooms being reallocated behind the scenes. Another connected it to tensions between Camilla and Kate. And that was all it took for the internet to erupt. Within hours, #JusticeForCharlotte was trending worldwide. Royal fans and longtime Diana supporters flooded comment sections with outrage. "You can wear the crown, Camilla," one post read, "but you'll never wear her story." The message was clear. People weren't just angry about the jewels. They were angry about what they represented being stolen. Camilla, already shaken from the confrontation with Kate, now faced a wave of online criticism she hadn't seen since her early days with Charles. This time, though, there was no scandal, just public judgment. Kate, on the other hand, was praised across the board. Her silence was seen as strength, her calm, a reminder of Diana's grace. "Catherine handled it the way a real queen would," one royal commentator said, and the narrative had officially shifted. The jewels were never just jewels. They were Diana's legacy, Charlotte's future, and the public had chosen sides. The firm didn't release a statement, but it didn't matter. The internet had already declared its verdict, and Camilla was on the losing end. But just when the story seemed to have settled, Kate made one quiet move that said more than any headline ever could. Kate's silent victory. It happened just a few days later. Kate arrived at a charity gala in London wearing a stunning emerald necklace, the same one Diana had worn during a famous state visit in the 1990s. The same necklace Camilla had reportedly tried to reassign to herself just months earlier. Now, it hung proudly around Catherine's neck, and it sent a message loud and clear. There was no press release, no interview, no cryptic royal comment, just one perfectly chosen piece of jewelry and a silent reminder. Diana's legacy was safe, and Charlotte's place in it had been restored. It wasn't just a necklace, said one fashion journalist. It was a declaration. The public reaction was instant. Photos of Kate in the emerald set went viral. Side-by-side comparisons with Diana's past appearance filled social feeds. Supporters of the Princess of Wales called it a full-circle moment. Even royal critics praised the quiet confidence in the move. She didn't need to say a word, one post read. She already won. And Camilla? She didn't attend the gala. Insiders say she had originally planned to, but stepped back quietly. Her absence only added to the weight of Kate's presence. Because in that moment, the public didn't just see a duchess. They saw the rightful guardian of Diana's story, a woman who had defended her daughter's future and done it with class. And inside the palace, those who once underestimated Kate now saw her very differently. Because after that night, a new balance had been struck. A new balance. Following the gala, change started to happen. Not loudly, but unmistakably. Royal protocols around inheritance and jewelry access were quietly rewritten. Aides confirmed new oversight procedures, including locked inventory lists and stricter authorization rules. Camilla, once allowed personal access to the vaults, now required formal requests, just like everyone else. Kate's influence, on the other hand, quietly expanded. Her team was granted more control over legacy planning, public image, and family archives. She was asked to advise on major royal appearances. Catherine earned her seat at the table, one insider said, not by force, by trust. Even King Charles reportedly told senior aides, Catherine has earned our respect and our protection. Meanwhile, Camilla began stepping away from smaller royal engagements. She appeared less often, spoke more carefully, and remained tightly scripted. The confident presence she once brought now seemed dimmed, not out of punishment, but out of realization. The game had changed. The public was watching, and more importantly, so was the family. Inside the palace, people noticed a shift. Staff members treated Kate with more authority. Even longtime royal traditionalists, once skeptical of her middle-class background, started recognizing her as the monarchy's steady heart. And while Camilla still carried the title, it was clear the new center of power had quietly moved. And for Charlotte, it meant everything. Because this wasn't just about the past, it was about the royal future, and her mother had made sure it was finally safe. The future queen. Princess Charlotte, still so young, may not yet understand everything that happened, but one day she will. She'll learn that the jewels she wears aren't just beautiful. They're pieces of her family's journey, protected not by titles, but by courage, by her mother. By a woman who stood up quietly but firmly for what was right. Catherine didn't fight for diamonds. She fought for meaning, for history, for the idea that legacy should never be rearranged out of personal ambition. She ensured that when Charlotte grows into her royal role, she'll do so with the right symbols. Pieces of Diana, Elizabeth, and Mary, all still intact. This wasn't just a scandal. It was a royal reckoning. A reminder that legacy is not decided by whoever holds the crown, but by who carries the values behind it. And Catherine did exactly that. She is more than the future queen, said one commentator. She's the guardian of the monarchy's heart. And so, the public now sees her not just as the quiet duchess in the background, but as the real matriarch of the modern royal family. And Charlotte? She will grow up not just wearing a tiara, but wearing the story of the women who came before her, because her mother refused to let anyone steal it away. This isn't just about diamonds and tiaras, it's about trust, legacy, and the quiet war for the soul of the monarchy. What Queen Camilla tried to move in silence was met with the quiet strength of a mother, Princess Catherine, who refused to let her daughter's future be stolen. In a world ruled by tradition and titles, Catherine showed that grace and truth still hold power. Queen Camilla's tears may have been real, but they came too late. The damage had been done. The public had seen enough, and the firm, always obsessed with control, is now facing consequences they never expected. But beyond the walls of Buckingham Palace, something even more important happened. A shift. Not just in power, but in perception. People now see Catherine not only as the poised future queen, but as the protector of the royal legacy Diana left behind. A woman who leads with quiet confidence, who acts when it matters most, and who carries her crown long before it's placed on her head. Charlotte may be too young to understand now, but one day she'll know the story. She'll know that her place in royal history was nearly erased, and that her mother fought to protect it. That's the real legacy. Not gold, not crowns, but love, loyalty, and truth. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Queen Camilla knew exactly what she was doing? And has Princess Catherine already proven she's the real queen in waiting? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell, because this royal story is far from over.